4,000 euros is the big blind in the cash game we're going to talk about today. We've done a couple hands from this before featuring Jason Koon. This hand does not feature Jason Koon, but it does feature some pressure put on in a big money scenario.
This is, of course, the Triton Super High Roller Bowl cash game. Oh my gosh, there's so much money. It's the $1 million buy-in, and we just started. So everyone has effectively $1 million, actually it's €1 million. Everyone has even more in front of them. It's a huge, huge game, and it stacks this deep and with so much money in the line. Sometimes you're going to see some wacky and interesting things.
It's the feeling out period for a $1 million cash game. I don't know what that feels like to be in, but it's probably pretty scary. And our players are going to be in a pretty scary spot here, and that's why it was suggested on Twitter by Abhinav M. If you have a suggestion for the breakdown, tweet at us, include a YouTube link.
Always do both those things. Now, before we get to the hand, we do have to acknowledge our sponsor, Nitrogen Sports Poker, who make it possible for us to bring this video to you and keep the lights on as well. At the end of every month, we have a fantastic tournament with a monster overlay on Nitrogen, but you have to use the link in the description.
Yeah, if you use that link, you get access to this tournament, which guarantees 1,000 buy-ins, and we've only ever gotten about 70 at the most. It's free money.
I mean,
get on Nitrogen, use the link, and get to play with the poker guys in that tournament, by the way. You can get, third or fourth place maybe, but probably not first or second.
Probably not.
Yeah.
Also, we're going to have another tournament at the end of this month, which is a free tournament, an absolute free roll just to celebrate the World Series. Another 100 millibid guarantee, but it costs you nothing this time. You got to get in these tournaments, people.
Get in there. Now let's get to the hand.
Games.
But they do exist.
They do, yeah, they exist, but
I understand that sometimes there's like an empty seat for like the VIP, so sometimes I guess it's shorter handed, maybe like 6-handed.
right in the Macau public games, it's usually 8 or 9 handed with a VIP seat. But the short deck stuff hasn't played 9 handed in a long time.
I see. And is short deck more popular now, or is it kind of still both games running?
Well, it's not legal in Macau yet.
Sure.
So it's not going to be more popular yet. But from what I can tell, every single person who plays it after playing No Limit likes it and thinks it's better. And
so it will be more popular.
It's no doubt growing
at least in the Asia scene.
Right. In Triton, they're talking about running a smaller buy-in short deck tournament.
Yep.
Maybe the next stop in Jeju. So hopefully that'll get more of the tournament pros who are kind of scared off by the big buy-in to flick it in there and
sure,
and kind of get their feet wet.
Funny, that's the first time I ever seen short deck. I was watching, I was like, I feel like I know how to play the game, but I don't want to. I feel like when I put my money in, I'm going to lose it very fast.
Yeah, it's cool because all people can. Let's see if we got a hand here. This is not going to be.
Like Wang Chang is going to bet here pocket sixes. I wasn't sure. I think he's a pre-flop raiser, but Shanghai Wang is flop.
Shanghai Wong is what everyone calls him.
Yeah, Shanghai Wang. I'll go with that. And I believe his name is Chong.
Couple interesting decisions already on this flop. One from Chong, one from Wong. Chong being the better with the 2 6s. That's the more interesting decision. We're betting into 3 opponents with 2 6s on this board. We don't even block the 6 of spades. What's going on here?
It's a strange bet for sure when it's 4 ways. One thing I like about this bet is that it's really small because generally people are going to have a lot of very obvious decisions almost no matter how we size this. If they have an ace, they're going to call almost no matter how much we make it. If they have spades, they're going to call. They're probably going to fold almost all their other hands unless you're the big blind and have a gutter. That's the one place they may call with this sizing. Otherwise, I think we fold out all the things that we'd pretty much want to fold out. So
yeah, but I want to fold out those gutters if Rui has a gutter here.
That's
fair. I really want to fold those out. At the same point, this is kind of a strange bet because it's not exactly a value bet and it's not exactly a bluff. It's definitely not a value bet. But the question is it actually a bluff or is it just equity denial? Is it just saying, go away with your queen 9 because I don't want a card to come?
I mean, I think it's some from column A and some from column B. I mean, I think we're going to successfully fold out 2 7s when we bet. So that's pretty good, and we would be happy about that. I think it's more equity denial for sure. But mostly I think I'm just going to bet really tiny and give myself really good odds to take the pot down right now if no one has an ace, a king, or spades. I hope that really works. And it didn't because, as it turns out, someone's got a real hand.
Somebody's got king queen. Wong has king queen.
Yeah.
Now, we wouldn't expect that this is going to work often enough for 16K to be enough, though, right? If we're going to bet this size, we have to have a multi-street plan unless really bad cards come.
I mean, the truth is this isn't probably going to work enough almost no matter how much you bet 4 ways with 2 6s on this board.
Seems all spewy.
I think generally this is supposed to be a check. I would really not consider betting this in most situations anyway. So maybe if you know your customers really well, maybe if this is the big bubble of a big tournament or something like that, you can bet. Otherwise, I think this is usually a check and give up spot.
Yeah, and now Wong does something interesting as well by not check raising, which seems like your mind immediately goes to this is a check raising hand, but upon further inspection, calling is kind of a good play here.
It's really close, I think. I mean, we're at a position which sucks when you've got a hand this good, because often it's going to go check on the turn of the river, so we may have to lead. That can look strong. We can blow out the bluffs that way, and they don't stick around and give us more money. That's problematic. At the same point, check raising may put us in some really weird spots.
Yeah.
Number one, an ace may not bet this board. Ace-queen may just check when it's 4 ways.
Yeah.
It might bet.
It might.
But it might not, and it might be folding to a check raise anyway. So that's not super great. Also, all the nutted hands are in Chong's range, not Wong's range, right? Like pocket aces, ace king, those hands are squarely in Chong's range, and Wong pretty much never has them. So that's a little bit of a problem too, range-wise.
Yeah, this is basically the best hand that Wong ever shows up with, and he can't really check raise. He can,
Well,
but
he can.
It's just kind of a weird spot where the range advantage is already so declared. You know, it's already so obvious who has a huge range advantage here, despite the actual holdings of the players.
Now, one of the good things about check raising here is if the big blind has any kind of a drawing hand, we
Yeah.
can pretty much blow it out of the water, right?
That's
if he's
good.
got spades, unless he has, nutted spades, like, a royal flush draw or something like
He
that.
might still fold on a paired board.
He might actually, you're
Yeah.
right, and depending on how we size it. This first bet is so small, we're gonna have to make it kind of big. The problem, of course, with raising here is so often if we raise with this good a hand, everyone's just gonna fold right away and we win a relatively small pot. A lot of it, I think, also depends on what we think about Chong. Is he a little bit spewy? If he's a little bit bluffy, a little bit spewy, maybe we give him a chance to do that. If he's the kind of guy who just doesn't believe or is gonna hold on a lot as a calling station, maybe we wanna check raise more of the time.
ST got a little.
Just call there. Trapping. Now, have you ever played with Chong Wong at all? This guy here?
That's Shanghai Wong. Yeah, actually, I played with him a couple nights, or we played all night a few days ago.
So he's this guy's Shanghai
That's
Wong.
Shanghai Wong. That's ST.
Okay, I thought you guys were saying the same thing. Now I figured it out.
The guy with pocket sixes,
Shanghai
everyone
Wong.
calls Shanghai Wong.
Let's
The
go
guy-
with that.
The guy who's going to win this hand with King Queen, that's ST.
Damn, this is, you guys are
Yeah,
cold-blooded.
I played.
This is a big-ass
I played
game,
some
dude.
big pots with him the other night, and
This shit makes
he's
High Stakes
kind of
Poker look
crazy,
like
and
the kiddie
he's
league.
action
You
sometimes.
guys are calling the
All right,
crop,
well,
dude.
ST is going to call here 35,000 euros.
Two bottles of
I think
water and
I'm guessing
French
they've played a
press
bunch and they're
coffee.
familiar with each other,
Thanks.
and I would think Shanghai Wong isn't gonna go for it. Like ST, when you're on the river against ST, he usually has a good hand. Especially when he's check calling.
Ambitious bluff here, but sometimes when you got such a bad hand on the river, you just feel obligated when more cards look scary. This would be,
Right? Maybe he bets like 400,000, just goes for it.
yeah, 4,000. That'd be intense.
Like if he was the pre-flop raiser, he has more aces, ace kings,
To be
and,
fair, yes.
and it looks like he's charging the flush.
He is going to bet again.
Oh, he's trying to get an ace to fold.
I would like that more time from
But
myself
I don't
if
even-
I'm making the decision.
I mean, I don't think he's gonna fold an ace to that size. So
ST here. He's got King Queen. I think this is just a mandatory call. Sometimes you're up against a flush. No real reason to raise. Find like you usually don't get worse to call.
yeah, raise. There'd have to be some crazy dynamics to ever consider raising.
And we just started this session, so that's not possible. So we'll have to see.
Yes, he's just maybe forgot what he has.
No, don't do that. No, you did not do that. ST.
God, that hurts. That hurts me.
That hurts me.
Well, Chong did it. He somehow did it. He somehow folded out pretty much the very top of Wong's distribution here, because as played, Wong doesn't really show up with spades too often here unless he ends up with a royal here with the queen 10 of spades. Otherwise, he can't usually continue on the turn. So that said, it's kind of crazy that he gets Wong to fold. However, the reason for it is that this is the death card for Wong's hand. This is horrible against Chong's range.
I mean, if we think about all the hands that Chong is doing this for value with that we can beat, there's maybe one or two, King 10 suited, maybe King 9 suited if he's opening that +2, which he may not be, although maybe he is, in this kind of a game.
And those are heavily blocked by us and the board.
That's true.
Yeah.
So there's not very many combos of those things, as opposed to all the monster hands that make sense for him to bet this way, which include all Queen 10s, all spades, pocket aces, ace king, king jack. By the way, if he's got king queen, we're only chopping. We don't really want to call for a chop anyway.
Right. The jack of spades in particular is the worst spade, along with the 10 of spades, because now the kings that we were beating are usually beating us, unless he has one or the other, king jack or king 10 usually, if he's continuing to bet with a king here.
Yeah.
So we really didn't want to see any jack, but especially the jack of spades. I actually think this is a reasonable fold. I think a lot of people will be up in arms about it and say it's an exploitable fold. He's near the top of his distribution, or maybe at the very top, except for king jack. I think it is the correct fold because sometimes distribution isn't just enough when there's such a severe range advantage.
Yeah, this range advantage is insane. It's like Jim Carrey in one of his many early movies.
In one of the 9 Jim Carrey movies where he's insane.
The Mask. I don't know.
Me, Myself, and Irene.
Oh, that's good. So I like that movie.
Liar is not exactly insane,
No.
but that's just because of how they frame it. You know, if you actually look at it from an objective perspective, that guy is freaking nuts, man.
Interesting.
He thinks that he can't lie. You kidding me?
So going back to the hand, though. So one of the things that makes this interesting is this, I agree with Grant, is a pretty easy fold. Distribution be damned. As long as we believe Chong is, we have to believe his story, and we have to believe he doesn't really have a lot of air here. Since he can have 2 6s,
You can probably have a lot of air.
now suddenly I think he can have all the pocket pairs. Maybe he can have 9-10 suited. Maybe he can have all sorts of stuff. And if that's the case, we can never fold a hand that's good, or even probably significantly worse than this. We may just be forced to hold on to sometimes.
We don't know if these guys have played together before or not. We know this is very early in the session, so if they haven't, there's very little data, which makes it a reasonable fold.
Lots of interesting spots here in this hand. The flop especially. The decision by Chong to bet into 3 other players for so small with pocket 6s on this board. The decision not to check raise by Wang. Interesting. And then, of course, the decision to keep barreling by Chong, and ultimately the fold by Wang. What do you think about all these things? You heard what we think. Let us know in the comments what you think, though. We're really curious to see what you have to say.
I'm in particular most interested in your thoughts on the bet with 6s on the flop. Going into the podcast that we did before this, we were really thinking mostly about the river. Then we started talking about the flop and spent a long time on it because it's a very strange decision.
Yeah.
And there's a lot to think about there. So I'd really like to hear about that. Now, if you want to hear more about super, super high-stakes cash games, check out this Jason Kuhn hand that was the biggest hand in televised poker history from this very cash game. Click right up here.
Just a €2 million pot.
Yeah,
nothing
no big
to think
deal.
about. Just blah, 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 2 billion euros. Yeah, you got to
2
check it
billion?
out. I mean, maybe.
I mean, it might as well be.
I mean, hey.
Yeah.
Grant was just referring to our podcast. That's where we spend a good 45, in this case, 55 minutes just talking about this one hand, all the decisions that led up to this and what we think about them, especially about that flop play. We really get into it deep, deep, deep. If you want to hear all about that, check out our podcast, The Breakdown, presented by the Poker Guys on your favorite app.
Yes, on your favorite app. And
Your
if
favorite
you
app.
enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe to this YouTube channel.